for me and probably everybody listening to the show and probably for yourself. There
Mm.
has probably been a point in your life, my life, our lives, where we have decided, I'm going to start this habit, and we make it 3 damn days and then we don't want to do it anymore. So do
Gosh.
you have any words of wisdom or words of encouragement or strategies or tools or something that can help folks, because we all start out these journeys with the best of intentions, but
Yeah.
those darn little habits will get us every time. So please offer your wisdom on how we
Thank
can
you.
make habits stick. Where would you take your life if you knew you could not fail? I get it. As a stepmom, mom, and entrepreneur, sometimes it can feel like what everyone else expects of you versus what you dream about for yourself are on opposite ends of the spectrum. As a woman, you're taught from a very young age what society thinks you're worth based on how you look, how you behave, and how much money you're allowed to bring in. But I'm here to show you that you can be the woman who has it all, and not just on the outside. I'm Brittany Lynch, and you are the queen of your castle. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Queen of Your Castle podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Lynch, with a very special guest, Linda Bonnar, here to share secrets for living. Good news, there's only 3 of them. So stay tuned, edge of your seat. Linda, thanks for being here today. I'm so happy to be having a chat with you.
Oh my gosh, Brittany, thank you so much for having me. And you know why I'm laughing already, don't you? You know exactly why.
Because there's more than 3.
Because there's more than
Spoiler
three,
alert.
right?
Spoiler alert. Before we get into the good stuff, Linda, why don't you go ahead and let us know, who are you? Where do you live? What do you love to do? What makes
Oh,
you
such a nice
tick?
question. Oh gosh, there's a question, right? How long do we have for that one, Brittany? Oh, we'll be here all day. So, hi everybody. My name is Linda Bonnar. I am a life coach. I'm based in Brooklyn, originally from Ireland. I'm a long way from home. I'm kind of by the way of the Middle East as well. And I work with mainly executives as a breakthrough imposter syndrome coach, but I also do a lot of work with young people as well because I was a history teacher for 15 years. So that's what took me to the Middle East in the first place from Ireland. I spent 14 years living there and then moved to New York. I'm here about 3 years now. Time is a bit of a blur, to be honest, Brittany. People will say to me, "Oh, how long are you here?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, there's been a pandemic, so it's all kind of rolled into one, hasn't it?"
Mm-hmm. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
What's it been like moving to Brooklyn? You were in the Middle East, you said, in Dubai for 15 years. So what was
Yeah.
that? What was that like? Just a quick snippet. I'm curious.
And it happened really, really in a really strange manner. So when I qualified as a history teacher at home in Dublin, I kept thinking I'll get a job really quickly, it'll be fine, and I didn't. And then I was like, what am I going to do? And I was reading through the job adverts in the Sunday paper one day, and I said to my dad, "Oh, they want teachers in Saudi Arabia," and he didn't even flinch, Brittany. He just said to me, "You are not going to Saudi Arabia, Linda." I'm like, "Dad," and he said, "Absolutely not." And I said, "Well, it's like this. If you don't let me go, I'm going to have to sponge off you and mum financially for I really don't know how long." And he said, "I'll get your suitcases for you, love." And I said, "Great." So before I knew it, I was on a plane to the Middle East, Brittany. And I'm like, what am I doing? It all happened so quickly. And, next thing I've arrived in Qatar, which wasn't actually Saudi Arabia, but a peninsula of Saudi Arabia. And I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? When I ended up staying there for 5 years, I met my husband there and we moved to Dubai. We were both teachers. Steve is still a teacher, and that's what brought us to New York. But it was just so far from anything that I had ever experienced. And one of the most interesting things about it was every year, like every Christmas, every summer, I'd go home to Ireland and I would get asked the same questions. Can you drive over there? Can you drink alcohol? Are you treated as a second class citizen? And I'm like, of course I'm not. I'm not treated like a second class citizen at all. But because I'm a woman, no. In fact, quite often it's the opposite. I've been treated really, really well, and I have such fond memories of the Middle East as well. It just got to the stage where we've been there we've been there so long. We wanted something different. We've always wanted to move to New York as well. I've always wanted to live here. But here I
Mm-hmm.
am. Yeah.
Isn't that so interesting? It's really a testament, though, to the stories that people have developed before they have any actual tangible concept of what that thing is
Yeah.
really like. We have all these preconceived notions about
Of
places and the way
course.
people would be treated and all of that. And we don't even
Yeah.
realize that they're planted in our minds.
But listen, even like what, with my dad, what my dad said to me straight away, part of that was he said, Linda, have you any idea what they do to women like you there? And I'm like, what does that even mean, Dad? Women like me? Like, what do you actually mean? And he said, I'm not even going there. And I was like, oh, gosh, this is terrible. And when they came to visit, they saw completely, they were like, gosh, this place is incredible. I'm like, yeah, but I think, Brittany, anywhere is only as good as you make it, right? It's like, that's all up to you.
Every place and every person has their quirks.
Of course they do. Oh, yes.
I'm interested to hear more about. You said you're a breakthrough imposter
Yes.
syndrome coach. What
Yes.
in the world does that mean? Explain it to me
No,
like I'm a third grader. What is a
I love
breakthrough
that.
imposter syndrome coach?
I love it. So if the imposter syndrome is all about that feeling of being a fraud, not having the confidence in ourselves, not feeling like we're good enough, like literally feeling like we're imposters in any area of our life, my job as a breakthrough imposter syndrome coach is to help people get through that, to break through that barrier so they can have the confidence that they want. And when I work with executives in this field, it's usually about taking a seat at the bigger table, regardless of who's already at that table, knowing that they deserve it, recognizing their own successes, recognizing that they've got to where they are because they are good at what they do, not because of luck or because they're a fraud or because somebody's given them some kind of a leg up or something. So it's recognizing your own worth, your own successes.
This
Yeah,
must be a pretty common. This must be a pretty common experience that people have to think I'm a fraud. I'm
yes.
not good enough to be here. I don't deserve this seat at the table.
Yeah.
What, in your experience, what is kind of behind that? What causes people to believe like I'm a fraud, I'm not good enough, I don't belong here?
Yeah. So I think there's so many things. Sorry, I know there are so many things from my work in this as well. And sometimes it starts when we're really young. So we often, we have these limiting beliefs that we pick up at such a young age. So talk about being a third grader, right? Or explaining it to you like you're a third grader. At that stage, we're already putting two and two together and thinking, gosh, am I good at this? Am I good at something like spelling? Am I good at math? Am I good at science? How do I know if I am? Do I have this measure? Like, do I have this compass or this internal ruler within myself? Or am I relying on other people's comments, other people's measurements of my success? So there's things like that, and as we get older, then as we move into adolescence, it's like, gosh, are we picked for teams? Are we good at sports? Are we musical? Are we creative? Are we good friends? What is it? And then as we get into the working world as well, and it's just so compounded. So compound. I've worked with so many people who will say to me, and this is one of the most frequent things I hear, especially when it comes to interviews, right? So a client says to me recently, Linda, I'm sitting there in the interview room. I'm looking around, I'm in the waiting room for the interview and I'm looking around, I'm thinking, my gosh, look at all these people and they're dressed so well. And they've obviously been to these top universities around the world. What am I doing here? And so that's really common, right? Education, educational background. Where are you from? What do you know? And it's like, but hang on a second. You're in the same room as them. So you've obviously done something or you've got something equally as good, if not better, to get to that stage. So there's so many different things. It can be just be feelings. I feel like I don't belong here. I feel like somebody is going to call me out. I feel like I'm not as in comparisons, right? Allowing ourselves to fall into that comparison trap. Look at her, look at him, look at them. Listen to what they know. Look at how confident they are. I'm not like that. So we compare ourselves to others as well. And we, instead of pausing, gently taking ourselves out of the comparison trap, we just allow ourselves to fall further and further into it. We feed this story as well. We feed this narrative of, I'm not good enough, I'm a fraud, I don't belong here. Because we come up with everything, with all the truths around the story. And honestly, Brittany, like the closer that I got to putting my book out as well, gosh, my imposter was thriving, absolutely thriving. And here's where I need to, I'll pause that bit for a second and just say, in full transparency, just because I work with people in this area, in this field, do not for 1 second think that my imposter never shows up at all, because she does, and she's alive and well. But I've learned to manage her a whole lot better now. So the closer I got to putting my book out, the louder that voice speaks in my head. Just saying, who do you think you are to put this book out and think that it's going to be amazing? You're not one of these New York Times bestsellers. You are a small town girl from Ireland. That's what you are. It's like,
Mhm. Ouch, it hurts, doesn't it? The
gosh,
way we speak to ourselves.
I know.
What's coming up for me that's so interesting is that this work that you do with imposter syndrome
Mm,
specifically is with executives in the
yeah.
workplace. But the translation for me is coming over in the parallels that the listeners of this show often feel that they're
Okay.
imposters, right? We don't belong in our families. We're second
Yes.
place in our home. We're runner up in our home. We'll never be as good as XYZ. We watch people on Instagram and their perfectly curated feeds and their perfect families. And we think, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? I don't belong here. I'm not good enough. And so it's
Yeah.
so interesting the way that these beliefs about ourselves and these identities that we've
Mm.
created aren't just specific to one area of our
No,
lives.
they never are. And Brittany, so even though I'll say I work with, that's how I market myself, right? Whereas the reality of the situation is that I work with so many different people come to me from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds and everything else, because they feel that they don't belong in a particular context or even across a number of different contexts in their life, personally, professionally, just like you described, even in a family situation. So
Mhm.
it's never just one. And these limiting beliefs, they don't just come along and they don't just hang out alone. So they're all, it's like this, they've got they mushroom, right? Yeah, sure, sometimes it comes down to one or two really core beliefs, like I believe that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. They spawn off these other little beliefs, like I need to be perfect, I need to get it right. In order to be successful, I have to work hard, and that means that I work all the hours that I have in the world. And so it's having that confidence, it's having that self-worth and seeing our value in whatever context it is relevant for us. It's all relative.
Mhm. How does this tie in with, you've mentioned the word confidence a couple of times.
Yeah.
How does this, these beliefs that we create about ourselves and our limiting beliefs that prevent us from getting where we want to be in our lives, how does
Mm.
this tie in with, say, something like self-esteem?
Yeah, of course. So if we think of our beliefs as the foundation, like for everything else, or our beliefs as being the glue that hold everything together for us, if that glue is made up of limiting beliefs, beliefs that don't serve us, beliefs that don't allow us to move forward confidently and successfully in the way that we want to, everything else that we build upon it doesn't have stability. It doesn't have that solid structure. And so, in order to have the confidence that we want, that foundation needs to be solid. And that foundation is made up of beliefs that serve us. I am worthy. I am enough. I can do this. Even those, looking at them like smaller pieces of this. So that anything else that we want to build on that foundation, relationships, work, a spiritual life, anything at all, when we have a solid foundation, the rest of it stands better. It doesn't mean that we don't get knocked down. Of course we do. But we have skills, we have tools, we have more resources to rebuild ourselves, to get back up when we do fall. And so when we tell ourselves, when we have belief and self-esteem, we know that we're worthy, and we think positively about ourselves and we feel good about ourselves, that translates into a healthy level of confidence. I deserve to be in this room with other people who are going for this job. I'm a part of this family. It's not about being arrogant and thinking that we're better than everybody else at all. It's about a healthy and an appropriate level of confidence for ourselves.
It's like, it doesn't matter. The metaphor that's coming up for me is if you were planning to build a mansion, right? This
Yes,
big grandiose mansion.
castle,
You
right?
wouldn't, a castle, you wouldn't want to build that on quicksand. It wouldn't matter how
No,
elaborate your plans were or how much
no,
you thought about it or how much you tried to troubleshoot or how much you tried to
yeah,
plan for every worst case scenario. If you're building that castle, that mansion on quicksand,
yeah,
right? If you
exactly.
don't have that foundation, then there's no point.
No. So it's, what then if we go back, if we chunk down, what is that foundation made up of? So yes, it's made up of beliefs. It's made up of particular thoughts that we have about ourselves. It's about managing our minds, managing our expectations, things like taking ourselves out of the comparison trap. But that all starts with awareness. What are the beliefs that I pack in my bag that I carry around with me every single day? What are the thoughts that I allow to occupy my headspace? What are the emotions that I allow to drive my actions? What are my behaviors? What are my daily habits? Are they conducive to creating greater confidence? Or are they holding me back? And I like to it's like one of those really thick, heavy resistance bands you find in the gym or something. No matter, so wearing our holding on to limiting your negative beliefs is like consistently having one of those around your waist. You can try and you can move and you might get so far, but you continually get pulled back. You don't move forward in the way that you want to because of these beliefs.
Mhm. And how hard would that be? How hard would that be?
Listen, tell me about it. I lived with it for years.
Mhm. I love what you said. I love your transparency and your authenticity about the
Thank
fact that,
you.
just because this is what I do for a living doesn't mean that I've like cracked the code, right? It just goes
No,
it just goes to show there is no there, right? You never get
no.
there. There does not exist. There is not just this place you get to on a treasure map and then all of a sudden all of your self-criticizing beliefs and the imposter disappear forever. But you did say specifically that this imposter got really big and loud around the time that
Mm,
you released your book. So,
mm.
can you tell us a little bit more about your book?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. So my book is called Just Three Things. It's my second coaching book. I wrote a coaching book for teenagers 4 years ago. That was my first one. And even then, right, the imposter was alive and well. But it was interesting because I seemed to manage it so much better with my first book because I felt so I was really in that space of being an expert. I'd worked with young people for years. I knew these things. I knew coaching really well. But then with this book, and I wrote this one because my friends all said to me when I put my first book out there, they were like, "Oh, this is for teenagers. Linda, where's our book?" I was like, "It's coming. It's on its way." Um, and so then just three things is all about making change more manageable and easier. It's about keeping things simple because I know, Brittany, I know what it's like to make big change. I know what it's like to to wear that thick resistance band around your waist and try and plow through quicksand as I'm wearing it as well. I know how difficult it can be. I know the importance of when we chunk these insurmountable problems down into smaller steps and smaller pieces, they just become doable. And that's what we want. We don't change, we don't create the change that we want to see in ourselves because of the way we think about it, the way we talk about it. It plays a huge impact on all of this as well. Oh, I have this big change to make. It's difficult, it's hard, it's challenging. And so again, it's not about living in la la land and thinking that change isn't going to be tough. It's about being realistic about it. Okay, it's tough. Have I ever done something tough before? Yes. Have I ever overcome a challenge before? Yes. How did I do that? What did I have at the time? What am I forgetting here? What do I need to remind myself of and remember? And Just Three Things does that. So it takes a number of different challenges, these things that we face on a daily basis, like self-confidence, like managing thoughts, like reminding ourselves not to judge others, reminding ourselves of our own successes. The tougher challenges as well, those tougher curveballs, toxic relationships, managing stress, managing anxiety, making big decisions, things that really, they can take our energy, they consume our headspace. So how do we do that? Leaning into those difficult conversations a bit more easily as well. Mm.
I love that this book offers sort of some universal strategies
Yeah,
to help folks overcome challenges, obstacles, reach goals, etc.
yeah.
Could you give an example of a big change? You had mentioned that this book is specifically useful for folks who want
Mm,
to make a big change in their lives
mm,
and breaks those big chunks, those big changes down into manageable, little
mm.
achievable goals that we can do, right? One of my favorite sayings is, what's the best way to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So this sounds like it's like a one bite at a time sort of book, right? Here's how to break the elephant down into bites.
Yes.
So could you give an example of what is a big change that if someone was on the fence about making this big change but didn't really know how to get started, or this big change felt like it was Mount Everest and it would just never happen because it was just too overwhelming? What sorts of things can folks lean into this book to help them change?
I love it. I always use myself as an example in this situation, Brittany. And so, again, in full transparency. So I'm 40. I just turned 40 this year. And when I think of my life as a young 20-year-old, my gosh, it was so different. When I was 21, I was diagnosed with anorexia, with anxiety disorder, and with depression. And so I went through my own whole mental health journey. And part of it, and I kept this talk about limiting beliefs and baggage. My gosh, I carried around so much of this stuff for years. But it got to the stage where I was so fed up with it, Brittany. I just met my husband. I met this great guy. We started dating. It was fantastic. I was like, I've got to sort my stuff out. It's time. Now, I wanted to do it for myself first. I loved the relationship that I was starting to create with Steve, but I knew this all had to start with me first. And so one of the things that I had to start doing was managing my mind, right? So at the time I was seeing a team of doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, nutritionists. And I remember sitting in front of my nutritionist one day and she had this whole list of things that she wanted me to change. And I was like, are you mad? And my brain just went, no, absolutely not. There are too many things. And I said to her, I was like, where do I start? And she said, well, I've just given you a list. Look, you've given me a list a mile long. And so I went home and I started to reflect on this. And I'm like, right, okay, what's the end goal? The end goal, we'll say, is to have more confidence, right? To have greater self-esteem. But it just seemed so insurmountable at the time. So what do I do? Where do I start? And I'm like, first of all, I need to get clear on what that means for me, what it would look like for me. What do I want to be doing? What are what does that really, really look and feel like? Then I started to chunk down. Okay, so this is my big goal that I want. What would I have to do first? Well, again, I'd have to have more self-confidence. But how do I even do that? So it comes back to that mind management, to managing my thoughts. And the first step that I started doing was, and I'm a recovering perfectionist, Brittany, right? So I was like, I want to do all of these things and do them really well and right now. But again, we put that pressure on ourselves, and we put that pressure on ourselves. It's like, I'm getting nowhere. I'm overwhelmed. So breaking it down, right? What are the thoughts? What are the most popular thoughts that I have that hold me back? What are the limiting beliefs? I need to recognize those. So I started to catch, challenge, and change those most popular negative thoughts that I had. Those were the first few things that I started doing. Once I had awareness of the thoughts that I was allowing to sit in my headspace, I could do something with them. Then that was challenging them. What's real about this? Where am I not being realistic? Oh, look at me, I'm so fat. Oh, hang on a second. Really? What would somebody else say? Like, where's the science even behind it? Where are the facts behind that? Oh, well, I feel fat. Feelings aren't facts. Okay, then I change that thought. What's something more constructive to think about how I look? Start step by step. And even if it's something, and honestly, this is where I started, and it makes me emotional to think about it because I know where I am in my journey now. But I had to start with something like, I like my eyebrows, or not even that, like I like one eyebrow. This eyebrow, I don't know what it's doing today, but this one I like.
I like the good eyebrow today.
I like the good eyebrow too, right? Okay.
We all have a good eyebrow.
Of course we
One
do.
good eyebrow.
That's the thing, right? Even if it's just one, there's always something beautiful and positive about ourselves. And we need to recognize that. And then we build on that. So it really is bringing it down to the smallest, simplest step for yourself and starting there. And that's why I started. And every day, and not every day was easy, but I did that every day. I started my gratitude practice every day. I started developing a better relationship with food. Instead of seeing food as something that was bad or I was bad for eating it, it was like, right, this fuels me because I want to make all these changes. I got to take them step by step. And even that, when I caught myself racing ahead, putting that pressure on myself, oh, you should be further along in your journey by now. It's like, no, this is where I am. Okay, so there's a lot of reflection then in this process as well, taking it step by step, what's working, what's not working very well. And I love the concept of, here's another part of just three things, right? Instead of this huge insurmountable change and I have to change 10 million things, let's start with three. And let's break those down even smaller to what's one thing I can stop doing because that's not conducive or helpful to what I want to achieve. What's something that I can start doing? It's just one thing. And what's something that I can continue doing? That's quite helpful. So stop starting.
Those are the three things.
You see? So there is really just three.
There is just three. Oh, there they are. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I really, this
Nice.
is really this is a really beautiful conversation to have for so many reasons, but I think that, it's the fact that at a point along your own journey, you had to boil this down to one eyebrow, right? And
Yes.
and it's easy to, again, we go into this comparison and these limiting beliefs that we have about I should be further along in my life, or I'm not doing enough, or I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, da 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 da. And we know that one day we want to have that house or have that job or have that dollar number in the bank account or whatever that looks like. And so, from my own experience and from the experiences of folks that I've worked with, clients that I've worked with, these big achievements, these big accomplishments that we set our sights on, like you said, there's too many things going on. It's too broad of a goal. It's too gigantic of a goal. And so to think through this phase, this really tangible example that you gave, this journey that you've taken from being the person who had to focus on one eyebrow of a good thing to now being the published author of 2 books and all of the other amazing accomplishments that you have strung together throughout your life. It really goes to show, it doesn't have to be these gigantic fireworks displays, these gigantic goals. Because if there's one thing that I know, it's that the brain tries really hard to keep you safe. And the brain keeps you safe by not allowing you to change. So the smaller the goal, the more likely that you are to meet it. and stringing all those little goals together. Eventually you get out of and now we like 2 eyebrows. I like both my eyebrows
See, look
today.
at, I'm having a great day. This is a milestone, like in my journey. And I laugh at it, right? But it's because I don't forget these things, and people can be. It's fascinating, Brittany, right? People, when we meet people on a particular part of our journey, when I meet people now, they often make the assumption this is how I've always been. I've always been, bubbly and confident and, gregarious or whatever. And it's like, whoa, 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 not at all. We all have a story, and we all have a chapter in that story that we don't want to read aloud, maybe even to ourselves again. So just, and recognizing how far you've come in your own story as well. So important.
Amazing. If folks wanted to get started on this, right?
Yeah.
You have this narrowed down to your 3 things. What is kind of the first place that you advise people to start making changes in their life? What kind of domain of life is your start here and the rest will come sort of place?
Love this. So start wherever you're comfortable. Okay. I love the exercise. I love the coaching exercise, wheel of life, a balance wheel, whatever you want to call it. And look at different areas of your life. Okay. Non-judgmentally, do your best to park judgment and drive a bit of curiosity, or cycle off on the curiosity bike for a while, right? And just get curious about where is it that if I made even a small change in that area, something else would happen in the other areas of my life. So start with one piece. When you've got that one piece, I cannot emphasize how important it is to get super clear on what it is that you want. And I'll give a quick example, Brittany, if that's okay. Please. So a client says to me, well, I want a relationship. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, and I'm like, I don't. In my head, I have an idea of what they want. Of course I do. I've been working with them for some time. But it's got to be really clear. I said, so what kind of a relationship? You and I have a relationship. Is that what you want? Oh, God, no. So what is it then? So getting super, super clear on what it is that you want. What are you working towards? Because again, when it comes to creating change, 3 things. We have to know what it is that we want instead of what we have right now. We have to actually want it. If you don't want to create the change, no amount of coaching is going to help. So be honest with yourself. Is this something that I really, really want? And the 3rd thing is the how. How do I get from where I am today to that person that I want to be, or that thing that I want to have? And this is where a lot of us get stuck. We don't know the how. So we get overwhelmed because we think it's right. It's just one big highway and we have to go super fast. It's not. So you recognize what it is that you want. Just think, right, keep asking yourself the question of what would I have to do first? What would I have to do first? What would I have to do before that? What would I have to do before that? And every time you ask yourself that question, be really aware of the answer that your brain is giving you. Because like you said, Brittany, right, your brain is designed to keep you safe. So is your brain saying yes to that change, or is it going, no, too much, not doing that? And your brain will eventually, when you give it something where it's like, oh, what would I have to do first? Well, I'd have to recognize just one thing that I like about myself. My brain went tick, and I'll start there. And you get down to that small, simplest step, that one change that you can start with right here, right now. And that's your starting point.
I love that. And I really want to point out this distinction. So many of us know where it is that we don't want to go. We know we don't want our lives. We want our lives not to look like, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to look this way. I don't want to have this sort of relationship. I don't want.
Yeah.
And it might sound like it's the same, but it's not. To identify, specifically what is it that I do want from my life? What is this big change that I do want? And reframing this and training our mind to see things in the what do I want rather than what do I not want is one of the biggest changes in my mind that people can make to help them move toward, to make sure that you don't have this thing that you don't want, right? We just can't look there or we're going to get more of it.
We find what we're looking for, right? Oh, I don't want to be with that guy. I don't want to be with that person or with that girl, whatever. I don't want that type of person in my life. Oh, well, look, here are more of them because that's what I'm looking out for. And there's a huge difference, Brittany. You know, our language is so powerful. I'm a master NLP coach and practitioner, and that connection between what we allow to go on up here in our heads to the language that we use, verbal or non-verbal, and that all affects our habits and behaviors. Mm-hmm. All of it. Get clear on what it is that you do want. Your brain doesn't recognize the word don't. So for those of you who have, as a stepmom, as a wonderful expert in this field, how many of us will tell kids, and I don't have kids, but I taught young people for years, right? You know, don't do this and don't do that. And their brains go, that's what I'll do. Don't slam the door. Don't be late with your homework. Oh, miss, here's my homework a week late. Oh. So get really clear about what it is that you want. Get really clear about what it is that you want from other people in your life as well. Even if it's just something as simple as close the door quietly. Mm. Get clear.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like the same thing, but it's not. Don't slam the door versus close the door quietly. Totally different. Different
don't think of the pink elephant.
Don't think of the pink elephant. Yes. You mentioned a word that I want to pull on super quickly.
Yes.
You mentioned the word habits.
Yes.
And so, you know, for me and probably everybody listening to the show and probably for yourself, there has probably been a point in your life, my life, our lives, where we have decided, you know, I'm going to start this habit. Yeah. And we make it 3 damn days. And then we don't want to do it anymore. Gosh. So do you have any words of wisdom or words of encouragement or strategies or tools or something that can help folks, you know, because we all start out these journeys with the best of intentions, but those darn little habits will get us every time. So please offer your wisdom on how we can make habits stick.
Yes. And I'm laughing because I think of myself when I decided that I wanted to stop smoking years ago. And if we think about that, right, I never met anybody who said giving up smoking was easy. So planted in my head from day one, as soon as I said I want to stop smoking, was that thought or that picture of it's hard, it's difficult, it's challenging. Okay, so step one, how are you thinking about this habit? Right? Is it, you know, how do you think about it? How do you talk about it? So again, you get clear about what it is that you don't want, but what is it that you do want? Well, I want to be a non-smoker. What does that look like? Okay, so now I have this idea. I'm getting clear about what I want instead. Recognize the triggers. Okay, again, get very clear. We all operate on patterns of language, patterns of thought, or patterns of behavior. So before I start into that habit loop, what has to be present first? And for me, right, it was something as simple as I would come home after a full day of teaching and I would sit down in my living room and I would have a cigarette. And that would be it then for the rest of the evening. Okay. And I told myself as I came in the door, I've had a hard day, you know, so to relax, I'll have a cigarette. So hear that story. So what has to be there for you to start into the habit? What's the story or the narrative that you tell yourself? Catch those things, even start with that, and create a smallest little change around the trigger. So what I did was, as I came in the door, I started leaving my trainers right at the door, literally stripped off inside my door. Put like I wasn't a runner at the time, but I put like, you know, a kind of gym gear, whatever on, and I left and I went for a walk. Now, that didn't mean that I didn't smoke it all that day, but it did mean that I had less. I was smoking less. I was starting less in the evening. And so it was gradual. But you've got to recognize what's there. What is it that starts this habit? What's the story I tell myself about it, or what's the language that I'm using? And what's just one thing that I can do differently to break that cycle or start to break that pattern? Awareness, awareness, awareness,
Mhm.
then action.
Mhm. And it's important too to see that even if you came home, had your shoes right in the door, put them on the second that you went through the door, and delayed that time between getting
Mm-hmm.
through the front door and
Mm-hmm.
and having that cigarette. That is still a step in the right direction. That is still a
Yeah.
win. That is still something that is worth celebrating and worth acknowledging and worth recognizing, rather than beating ourselves up for like, oh, I haven't done this thing yet. If there's any change in the right direction, focusing should be, I hate to use the word should, but
Hear you.
on that accomplishment rather than where we're not yet. So I love
Yeah.
that. It starts off again, it's just like these little tiny simple changes that all
Tiny.
add up and create huge monumental growth over time.
Yeah. And so again, it's just like what you said as well, recognizing your progress. If there's one thing that you stop doing after this, stop chasing perfection in any part of your life at all. And look at the progress that you have made and that you're making. Because your brain loves a little reward as well, right? So if you keep criticizing yourself and criticizing your brain, oh, I didn't do it perfect today. Well, it's moving away, right? You're staying stuck in those old habits of thinking or language around it. So give your brain a little reward. It's like, woo, I look at that. I did so well. So it gives it like that little dopamine hit as well. We set out, even if it's something as simple as, well, we set out to go for a walk right after work and we did that. Great. Yes, I smoked afterwards as well. So again, it's not about living in la la land. It's being realistic. I'm one step closer than where I was yesterday.
And that's huge.
And that's, yeah, because you put all those little steps together and all of a sudden you've gone a mile.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Linda, if folks wanted to grab a copy of your book or get a hold of it, where can they do that?
Thank you so much, Brittany. So Just Three Things is on Amazon. It's available on other fantastic online bookstores, online stores, online bookstores as well. So please feel free to grab yourself and grab some other people a copy of my book as well, because it makes a fantastic gift. And it's around the time of year we're all talking about change and, dare I say it, New Year's resolutions and everything else. Make change easy for yourself. Make it manageable, make it more simple and doable. And you can do that by getting a copy of the book. Let that be your first step as well.
Just Three Things by Linda Bonnar.
Yeah.
Magnificent. And if folks wanted to connect with you, stalk you on social, where do you hang out most? Where can we link up with you?
I love that. Stalk me everywhere. My website is lindabonnar.com. I'm on Instagram at Linda Bonnar Life Coaching. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. It's all the same. I'm Linda Bonnar.
You're everywhere. Linda Bonnar is everywhere. Look for Linda Bonnar, reach out, say hi, let her know what you thought of the interview.
Please
and grab a copy of Just Three Things. Thank you so much, Linda, for being here today. It's been amazing talking to you.
Oh, Brittany, what a pleasure. Thank you so much.
I wanted to let you know about a special online mini training that I'm offering for free for a limited time. It's called Peace, Love, Stepmom. And not to toot my own horn, but beep, beep, it's pretty freaking awesome. Peace, Love, Stepmom will give you the exact steps to take in order to create more harmony in your stepfamily without feeling like you have to walk on eggshells or bite your tongue or ignore your own needs just to keep the peace. Because if you are listening to this, then chances are pretty good that you know there's a big difference between not fighting and actually feeling peaceful. To enroll in Peace, Love, Stepmom and get immediate access to this incredible online course, head to peacelovestepmom.com and sign up. It's totally free. You don't want to miss it. So go to peacelovestepmom.com to enroll and get immediate access. I hope this episode got your wheels turning and showed you just how powerful you are. I would invite you to take 30 seconds and tap subscribe to this podcast. When you subscribe to the podcast, then rest assured you will never miss an episode. And in no time, spinning your wheels will be a thing of the past. Thank you for listening and subscribing. And if you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the absolute world to me if after you subscribed, you jumped on over and left me a 5-star review, and better yet, a written review. I am on a mission to let every mom and stepmom know that you can create the life of your dreams. And I need your help to change the world. The world needs us. Thank you so much for subscribing and leaving me a 5-star review. I will see you next week. For more behind the scenes action and to get really up close and personal with me and our beautiful step family, jump on over to Instagram and follow me at The Step Queen. Don't be shy, send me a DM, tag me in your posts, tag me in your stories, let me know what you're up to and what about the podcast has been blowing your mind. I cannot wait to get to know you better, and Instagram is my jam. I love you so much. I love you so much. Make it rain, girlfriend.